All right, good evening, everybody. I'm going to open the meeting of the Town of Hudson Select Board of Monday, January 12th, 2026. Would you all rise and salute the flag with me, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So before we begin, I'd like to, Ms. Congdon is not going to be able to attend physically or remotely tonight. She asked me to just read a brief message. As many of you know, I have been participating in our recent meetings remotely. I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting as I may be undergoing surgery today. I remain dedicated to my work for the Town of Hudson and look forward to returning to the board table in person as soon as I am able. I hope for your patience during my recovery, and I wish the board a productive meeting tonight. Next on the agenda, public session minutes. Public session minutes of December 15th, 2025. Okay.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Meetings and public hearings are on 4 licenses. Select Board to consider approving the issuance of a new common victualler license to Eunice Caracas for Domino's Pizza Sunday through Thursday between the hours of 10:30 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. and Friday to Saturday between the hours of 10:30 a.m. to 1 a.m. located at 136 Main Street.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions or comments? Okay. All those in favor? Okay. That also passes 4-0. (4B) Select Board to consider approving revised language pertaining to the Home Rule petition for Hudson Hives LLC, House Bill H4272.
So moved.
Second.
And questions or comments? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. 5A, Select Board to consider appointing a member of the board of the Select Board, should say, to the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust as their designee with a term to expire December 31st, 2027.
So moved.
Move to designate Mrs. Bemis as our
Okay.
designee.
Seconded.
And I accept. Thank you.
What's the volunteer?
I do volunteer.
Nobody else, correct? All right, so a motion's been made and seconded. Ms. Bemis, all those in favor? Okay. Passes 4-0. Congratulations, good luck. Well, Pam and Christina do a great job, but Pam's great. So, you'll be in good hands. (5B) Select Board to consider confirming the promotion of Amanda Odwin, thank you, from Administrative Assistant to Executive Assistant to the Select Board / Town Manager's Office, effective January 13th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Lauren?
Mr. Gregory, did you want to speak to what we had spoken to? Or?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So this request before the board is the first part of a larger request, which is an attempt to try to modernize the positions in the town manager's office. Most town manager or town administrator offices of Hudson size have an assistant town administrator or manager and an executive assistant to the combined office of town manager and select board. And that's the particular request before the board this evening. My request is to create a new job description for this position, executive assistant to the select board and town manager, which expands upon the administrative assistant role that's currently being performed. And there's several key reasons for this new change. The position has routine access to confidential personnel information, employee information. The position is privy to town litigation. and other confidential matters involving the town manager's office. And this particular position in Hudson has and will continue to have a very direct role in the management of HR and benefits across not just the municipal departments, but the school department as well. So those are the fundamental reasons why I'm asking the board to consider creating this new position and then requesting the board to promote Ms. Bodwin to the new position effective tomorrow.
Thank you.
And I would just like to offer on top of that, I think Amanda's done an outstanding job. Very quiet, which is fine, but in the past few years, I have seen nothing but an improvement in every aspect of the everything that she does. It's been dramatic improvement over previous years, and it's much appreciated when, I mean, we all make mistakes, but when you don't see many of them, and seems to Amanda just, I think, tackles things. I think it's almost like a challenge for her. No matter whatever you give her, she gets it done. And I've not only seen it, I've heard it from you. I've heard it from Fernanda also, who you guys work with her every day. So it's much appreciated. I think this is much deserved.
I'll add too, Mr. Chairman, that Amanda really has been a consummate team player. She's always looking to assist, not just within the office, but assist other departments where there's turnover, staffing changes, another department needs some additional administrative support. She's always willing to step in and volunteer. I never have to ask her. She's willing to do that. She's entirely committed to the office, to the town. So,
thank you. All right, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, it passes 4-0. 5C, Select Board to note the resignation of Eric Ryder.
So moved.
Okay, second. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, I'd like to have a brief statement I'd like to read. And I would like to wholeheartedly thank Mr. Eric Ryder for his almost 10 years of service to our town as the director of the DPW. Eric was instrumental in guiding our town through the PFAS crisis and ensuring our water is filtered and safe for all of us to use. Eric worked tirelessly to bring our new DPW facility to fruition, which has brought a new, clean, safe, state-of-the-art facility to our DPW employees. Eric worked with Eversource to ensure the new buried transmission line followed all local ordinances and bylaws. Eric was instrumental in implementing best practices in the department, which included establishing enterprise funds for water, sewer, and stormwater operations. Eric coordinated with Mass DOT to make sure the Washington Street Bridge project was done in a safe and efficient manner. Eric worked hard to make sure our Chapter 90 monies were spent wisely, and he made sure as many roads as possible were paved and improved with that money. I would also like to thank our current DPW staff for your continued efforts in keeping us safe and keeping our town beautiful. Thank you, Eric, for all you did for the resident of Hudson. Good luck in your new endeavor. 5D, Select Board to consider confirming the appointment of Ajitha Paramitla as interim Public Works Director.
So moved with comment.
Second.
Okay. Tom, do you want to just explain, and then you can, whoever wants to have questions, so.
sure. Rajitha has served the town for some time. She's currently serving the town in a consulting capacity regarding stormwater compliance, the MS4 permit, and compliance with that permit. But she had served as the assistant DPW director for a little over 2 years, from July of 22 to September of 24. She has a civil engineering degree. She has her MC PPO designation, the public procurement designation that I and some others have. And she has an extensive background in public works in the municipal setting, having served in multiple communities She's very well respected among her peers. She's very knowledgeable. I've enjoyed working with her in the time she served as director. She's committed to stepping up and helping the town in this interim capacity. And I'm happy to say that I've appointed her, and I'm asking the board for its ratification or confirmation vote.
Ann?
I'm going to ask Tom for some clarification about the town charter, because my understanding is the town charter is kind of like our roadmap in all of these municipal actions. And so my understanding is the town charter is telling us that the town manager is responsible for hiring of positions such as this, and I just want to clarify that is the direction that we should be going.
Yeah, so the charter tells us that the town manager appoints the department heads, and those appointments are subject to select board confirmation or ratification vote by a majority of the board. The department heads appoint their staff, and those appointments are also subject to the same confirmation vote by the select board, a majority vote. So this interim appointment I'm viewing as the same as a department head appointment. Town manager appointment, select board, up or down vote by majority. And that's how I would be viewing the appointment of the permanent director position, in the same manner, supported in the charter.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, so motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Okay, it passes 4-0. Okay, well, thank you, Majita. Thank you for stepping up. Appreciate it. All right. You see? You want? Will you stand up? Everybody knows who it is. Now you're going on the wanted poster. All right, six contracts. Select Board to consider approval and authorization to sign snow plowing and hauling bids for the 25-26 winter season, and to authorize the town manager to sign on behalf of the board.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I do.
One?
I have noticed that we've had some issues with sidewalks and stuff. And I know these are trucks, but does this kind of release any other employees to be able to improve some of the sidewalk situations in town?
I'd have to look into that question a little bit more carefully to give you a correct answer. My sense is that these contract employees are for the streets.
Right.
So,
but then I was
but
wondering
I'll
if it
look
then
into
trickled
that.
down. Yeah, just.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think these contracting positions are just for the road plowing.
Right.
Not for sidewalks, and you tend to call on them only when it's an emergency and staff tend to make sure that the roads are clear.
Okay.
But sidewalks is something that we have to discuss with them.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if because of them, they could then release some DPW employees to be able to,
The
yeah.
equipment and the skill set is very different for sidewalk road versus road clearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. All those in favor? Okay, passes 4-0. Seven A, Select Board to consider approving a donation to the Police Department's Community Policing Program from Jeff Hillis and the Hillis Family Foundation, the amount of $1,000.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay. Thank you to the Hillis family. Chief, they do this is more than once, correct?
Every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Yeah, we send something to the family, always do.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I knew it looked familiar, and I said, I think they do this a lot, so that's great. All right. Select Board to consider authorizing an additional counsel to represent the Board of Health in contractual negotiations with BP Trucking.
So moved with comment.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Bemis.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions that I'd like to ask Tom for clarification. My understanding is that in the past, we have approved independent counsel for the Board of Health for, I believe it was site management, is that correct?
The site assignment.
Okay, so the site assignment. And my understanding also is that for town council to represent the Board of Health, there is no conflict of interest.
Correct.
Is that correct? All right. And then also that the former DPW director he was not a co-sponsor with BP for the expansion of the transfer station.
Yes, that's correct. He was not.
Okay, so he was not.
You can hold on. Okay.
The town is a co-sponsor, correct?
The town of Hudson is a co-applicant along with BP Trucking. BP Trucking is the lead applicant, but the town of Hudson is a co-applicant by virtue of the town as the landowner of the parcel.
Okay, so my concern was, is there any conflict of interest between town council representing the Board of Health in contractual issues such as the issue that has come up?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Are we
Are we,
going to hear from?
was that a motion to approve?
No.
the-
We can, I want to call up Lauren, yep, also.
Yeah. So our motion was only to discuss it?
Motion was to, so we can discuss it.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening. Lauren Antonelli, Director of the Health Department. I apologize, Matt Galen, our board chair, was supposed to be here and leading this conversation, but just had a family emergency about right before he was about to walk out the door. So it's me, but would you have questions? You want me to? What would you like from me?
You can, if you have presentation,
Okay.
sure.
And so to your point, Ms. Bemis, we do currently have legal counsel that was approved by the select board back, I think it was December of 2024, and that was a unanimous vote at the time to allow the Board of Health to go ahead and get their own legal counsel because town council was serving as the lawyer for the town as the applicant alongside BP, as was just said, per the regulations, because the transfer station is on town land, the town does have to serve as a co-applicant. And on the official application that came in, it did not state Mr. Ryder's name, as I think maybe has been talked about, but it did list the Department of Public Works. It didn't say just the town of Hudson. The official application does say BP Trucking and Town of Hudson Department of Public Works. So what we are looking for and requesting is the authorization to fund additional legal counsel, which may or may not be the same lawyer that we currently have. We're currently working with Matt Connolly out of the firm Nutter. And we're looking for that to advise on contractual and governance matters related to the transfer station. So this request is separate from and outside of the formal site assignment permitting process that is currently underway. And we are envisioning that there could kind of be two processes happening simultaneously. We are on a pretty scripted timeline in terms of the site assignment because that's all kind of regulated by the state. But we have noticed, or we've kind of discovered in going through this process and reviewing the existing contracts, in particular the solid waste management agreement, which was signed back in 2021 by the Board of Health and by BP, that there is potentially language in there that allows for another permitting process with the Board of Health outside of the state scripted site assignment process. And really, we raised these issues to our current attorney, and he was very clear that these questions fall outside of the scope of his contracted work as it is now, because he is, per the regs, being paid by BP. He's still a completely independent lawyer that the Board of Health went through a pretty thorough process to choose. I think we had 3, maybe even 4 different lawyers and firms to choose from. And so him and his firm were selected completely outside of anything having to do with BP. It's just stated in the state regs that but most of the costs that are going to be incurred by a Board of Health to review and go through this type of application process, this site assignment, the applicant will cover the costs for. And so that has all been negotiated, that BP is paying our lawyer, but there is, a contract and a specific scope of work for him. And that, again, is very specific to the site assignment process. So when we raised this to him, he noted that it is outside of the scope of his work, but, he did have to review the contract as part of the overall picture. And he did feel like it has merit and kind of warrants further review. Ideally with someone experts in municipal contracts and these type of projects. So we really feel that it's important to respect the boundary that our lawyer has and not ask that he kind of counsel on this separate piece unless the board decided with approval, if the board decided to contract with him in an additional contract that would have to be paid by the town to do this further review on the contractual side. And we feel strongly that this really matters, and especially now where we're at in the process, because as we've said, the site is on town-owned land. We are locked into 20-year contracts, which we're now a few years into, but still plenty of time to go. And in the end, ultimately, the land will remain the town's property. The town would potentially be taking over the property if BP at whatever point doesn't attempt to renew with us, or we don't attempt to renew with them. And so given that there's, a real long-term reality here, we feel it's important to just vet this fully now, and that it would be unreasonable and potentially risky for us to kind of move forward with this feeling like we don't fully understand what authority we have in that solid waste management agreement. And so, this really isn't about us supporting or opposing the project. We have to look at this, from a very neutral perspective, which the board has been doing and will continue to do. And again, that's in terms of the site assignment process that's very scripted by the state. And so we will do that. We have a kind of strict timeline for that with public hearings starting March 10th. There's a Board of Health meeting tomorrow evening at 5:30. It's on Zoom, where we'll really be detailing out the process and the timeline. But in terms of these other potential contract negotiations that could take place, or review and then potential negotiations, we feel really strongly that it would be very helpful to have, to continue to have our own legal counsel. And I know that there is town counsel, which hasn't been offered to us yet to review the contractual side. But even still, I think, everyone was in agreement and of the opinion a little over a year ago that, there was potential conflict, or even if by the books there wasn't a conflict of interest, it's just cleaner to keep things separate, because the town council will continue to serve in that role as counsel for the town as an applicant. And I think there's a lot of public interest in this. There was a long-term contract. It's a big project. It is just better, the board feels, to keep things separate.
Okay. Mr. Chair.
Ms. Antonelli, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
You said you want this independent counsel to review the contractual side. What exactly do you mean by the contractual side? Like who right now is representing the board on the so-called minor modification?
So the minor modification or the site assignment, that is the state regulated process that our lawyer, Matt Connolly, is representing us on. The contractual side would be, like I mentioned, the solid waste management agreement that was signed back in 2021. That's a 20-year agreement that was signed by the Board of Health and BP. That is kind of the one we're looking most closely at, but there is also the lease agreement, which was also signed in 2021 by the Board of Health Select Board, in agreement with BP. And again, that's a 20-year lease on the land. And so there is language in the solid waste agreement that the board feels would allow or would potentially require BP to have to come before the Board of Health outside of the site assignment minor modification process and present to and discuss with the board what they're planning to do. And because that would just be kind of governed by the contract and the language in the contract, there would potentially be more flexibility in how we kind of rate or judge that proposal. As I've said, the site assignment minor modification process is very kind of rigid and dictated by the state. We can either deny it, approve it, or approve it with conditions, and it's very much based on potential impact to public health, safety, environment. So again, that is very rigid, and that's the very strict criteria on that side of things with the site assignment process. Contractual, again, would be potentially a little looser, if you will, because we could take into account a broader range of factors. And again, it's the town's land. It's a long time. They're proposing, more than doubling. It's a big project. And I think as we've all seen, there is a ton of public interest in this. And we just feel, it's important to protect our rights as a town, as the government, and the Board of Health and their authority, and to protect the residents as much as possible. And maybe it will change things, maybe it won't, but we do feel it's best to look into this now than have issues potentially down the road.
Okay, so I get you there. So you're looking to get additional legal representation to potentially provide more legal ammunition on behalf of the residents of the town.
Just legal analysis, I guess, really digging into the agreement that exists, and then, starting to discuss with BP what that means. Right now, it seems like we're of differing opinions of what this language in the contract means. BP is interpreting it one way, we are interpreting another way. The board, none of us are lawyers. But I think, as I mentioned, our lawyer, without being able to get too deep into it at this point, does feel like it warrants further legal review and further consideration and discussions. And I think the board would likely choose to have our current lawyer, Matt Connolly, continue to work with us on this. But again, we would need to establish our own contract with him, and that's where we would need some town funding for that.
That is, so your existing lawyer feels like he's reached the end of where he can move. There's this other area over here he'd like to get into but can't.
Potentially,
in his scope of service. That's what he feels anyway. So you don't really need a new independent counsel. You need the current independent counsel to get broader authority funded by the town.
Yeah, I think it would go to a vote of the board on if they do want to continue with our same lawyer. We will, either way, we'll be continuing with him on the site assignment minor modification process. At this point, I think it makes the most sense to continue with him because he now has been working with us for a year almost, and understands the context and has gotten into the site assignment process. But there could be an argument to get someone else. But I think for efficiencies, it's probably best to keep with our current lawyer, and he's been great. We've had a great experience. I know questions have been raised publicly or comments have been made about the fact that we should have a lawyer that BP kind of doesn't have a say in. And I just want to clarify for folks, for you all in the public, that the lawyer that we currently have, BP did not have a say in. They are paying for it because that is what the state regulations require. And that's what was negotiated. But like I said, the board had several different options that they vetted. We interviewed, reviewed, bios, resumes, all of that, and ultimately chose Matt Connolly in the firm Nutter. And that was completely separate from any involvement or, recommendation from BP.
Thank you very much.
So a couple of things. You said that the services from our town council hasn't been offered. Did you ask?
So we asked for approval to hire a lawyer. Or
Did you ask if our town council could serve as that council?
So that was not the specific question. And in response, we got kind of the
But
town
you said it
stance.
hasn't been, our town council, you said has not been offered. Did you specifically ask for our town council's services for this?
We did not specifically ask because back a year ago when we started out on this project, it was decided by the board and unanimously by the select board to have things separate. Now, I know these aren't the exact same situations.
Have things separate. Well, all we did was approve for you to hire counsel for that first part, for the site assignment. That's it.
Because we felt and people agreed that having town council who was serving as the counsel for the town as a co-applicant and also serving as a representative of the board
that's your opinion. That's not my opinion.
Okay. Well,
That's
I know
your
that was kind of how we presented that to the board last year, and the board voted for that. And so, I think we've been working from the mindset that it's best to keep things separate. Town council is working closely with the town side, Mr. Gregory, Mr. Ryder when he was here, and they have their kind of communications with BP.
Board of Health is also the town.
I understand. Yep, I understand. But it is the Board of Health that has the state-mandated authority on this matter.
That's like saying anytime we look for an opinion or information from our town council that we shouldn't use them if we think that he's not adequate.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I think there are cases where the subject matter is very specific, and the board really wanted someone that works in that realm, full time on environmental issues, and so that's what we.
I agree with that part of it. I mean, we hired attorneys to help us with the water, with EverSource,
zoning and things like
right.
that.
But we're talking about contractual issues. We're not talking about the transfer station itself and the theory of whether it's good or bad. We're talking about contractual issues, contracts. So I don't, and you also said that the Board of Health didn't agree with BP's attorney. I mean, whatever. BP's attorney could be right, he could be wrong. The Board of Health didn't agree with it. But I think,
and the town did agree with, the town stance was the same stance as BP's and their lawyers.
Okay.
That came out of town council.
Okay, but the fact also remains that our town council is adequate to perform these services, but you guys haven't specifically asked for that.
We asked for approval.
What I'm saying is you said it hasn't been offered.
It hasn't been offered because in the response from Mr. Gregory when I asked, I was just given what the town council's response was, which was essentially the same thing as BP's, and I thought maybe at that point in time, if Mr. Gregory felt like this was something we should continue, that he would offer for town council to be the one to continue that and maybe have conversations with our board chair, myself about it, and that was not offered at that point. It was very much just, this is kind of town council stance, period.
Okay, so we're asking for town council's opinion and advice on a legal matter, and so we're not supposed to agree with that. I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Look, this thing is all, all encompassing for everybody. It's not, when we're talking about whether it's good or bad and yes or no, we're talking about certain contractual issues and things that have to happen. And for a certain Board of Health you guys need help with legal representation, right? You have an attorney now that's helping you with that? But now the Board of Health has decided that they know more than our town council does, and they need additional counsel.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. I think, again, we've been working from a point where the board feels like it's more comfortable to have separate legal counsel outside of town council because they are so enmeshed in this process as an applicant. So that's been their opinion. And there wasn't, much more. The door wasn't really open to discuss this further. And I'm not saying that, we know more than town council, but I think it's a little more nuanced than just, no, this isn't how this contract reads.
But, I mean, from what I understand, look, we have a legal opinion from town council, which is attorney-client privilege, okay, in regards to the full request. We were privy to their determination before that it wasn't necessary to hire additional counsel, that their firm was able to legally, rightfully perform those services. I mean, if we're talking about the town fighting some outside entity for something, that's one thing. It's not the case here. All we're talking about is contractual issues.
Well, I think some people would argue BP is an outside entity, yes.
I'm not, okay, what I'm saying is fighting it, okay? If that's what your stance is, that's a different story. Okay, we're talking about hiring counsel to cover contractual issues. If in the end, the Board of Health and even attorneys find out that there's some reason that it shouldn't happen, then that's a different story. I'm not saying it could happen. I'm not saying it could. I would never say that it couldn't happen. It's going to happen. I would never say that when we have a contract on the line. But I am going to defer to my counsel, who advises us. That's what they're hired for. That's what they're professionals in municipal law. That's what they're there to do.
Yeah, and I think to your point of, maybe it could happen down the road, our stance is we would rather figure this out now. And if negotiations need to happen now before BP breaks ground, starts dumping a ton of money into this project, and then down the road, they're coming to their opening or they've even opened, and then we figure this out, that's going to be hugely problematic if then things are going to have to change and they've already constructed their facility and have that either underway or fully open and operating.
Well, I understand that, but that's why we have that to help you with that, to make sure that nothing happens with the contract. That's what they're there for. That's why we hire them. So we're also talking that we have them, and then we already authorized you to have the first one, but to now pay additional money to have another one to perform a service that should be and can be done by our current town council. So it's just as much as my opinion as it is the Board of Health's opinion, but mine's not an opinion. Mine is based upon what town council has said.
Well, and ours, like I said, is based on what our council has said as well, that there is merit here, and this is something that we should review.
I thought he was only advising on the other thing, though.
So we
I was advising you on the contract.
So we raised the question. He has to review the contract and work with the contract for the purpose of the minor modification process. The board members, or especially our chair, found language in the contract that raised questions. We brought it to our lawyer, as we have throughout this process on various things. He is, there is a scope of work in a contract that exists that BP is paying for. So it wouldn't be, the right thing to do for him to kind of go down in a different path with us on BP's dime. So he just kind of more surface level, without getting too deep into it, says, yes, I've reviewed this, and I do think there's merit here. It is something that I would recommend is reviewed further and discussed further. But, he's not able to go too deep into it under the current contract.
Right. So I understand that part of it. So logically, the next step would be to go to the town manager saying, this is where we're at with this. This guy can't do any more, and we think we need some legal help with this. and then it gets passed on to our counsel to help with that. I believe, and I'm not talking about the current client attorney privilege opinion information. I'm talking about previously was stated that our counsel could help with that specific issue. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes, that's
Gregory?
right. That's correct.
And that was from Brooks and Durensis.
That's right.
But, correct me if I'm wrong again, you can too, is the Board of Health felt that not only was BP's opinion, which is fine, but our town council's opinion was not valid, and they would requested additional counsel.
That's what the request is.
Because the Board of Health felt that our council opinion on the contractual issue had no merit, or whatever the word is.
Or
words are.
not to paraphrase, but that there's more
I'm not paraphrasing either.
there's more comfort, as I'm hearing, comfort from the Board of Health to have a separate counsel, is what I just heard.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't say that we feel like town council's opinion is not valid. I think, it's multiple things. As Mr. Gregory just said, yes, there is more comfort with the existing relationship that we have that has been working, really well for the board. And I think, the fact that town council's opinion was essentially the same as BP's, and maybe that's because that is how it's supposed to be interpreted. But I think that did raise some questions amongst the board as to, okay, it seems like, this opinion is very much the same. That was the opinion very quickly. And of course, BP is pushing strongly that this is not, how we're interpreting it is not what was intended, because they don't want to have another kind of hurdle that they have to jump to get approval for this project. But, I think that raised some questions for the board as well. I think town council, Mr. Gregory, have been working somewhat closely with BP as co-applicants. And we feel it's best to keep things separate. I don't know what more to say, but I think the town management side, especially DPW over the last year plus that we've been discussing this, has been very supportive of this project, and that is fine for DPW to take that stance or Mr. Gregory to take that stance. But for the Board of Health, we are looking from a different angle of public health, safety, preserving and protecting our environment. And we feel like we have this obligation to do right by the community and vet this as much as we feel we can, use any of the resources we may have to make sure that this project, which is going to be a big change, have a big impact in different ways on the community, that this is fully vetted and reviewed, and we're able to kind of discuss this and work through this with BP as much as possible. Again, understanding that the site assignment process is very structured and strict according to state regulations.
But you have the site assignment council already.
We do.
Right. And he's advising you on that, but we're talking about contractual issues.
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Lauren?
I would just like to speak to kind of what just happened. I mean, I know you guys have as well. I went and counted. We've gotten 94.5 emails in regards to this about people who believe that the Board of Health should have a separate counsel, which they're residents. They're paying the taxes. They will be paying the bill for the lawyer. Either way, if our current town council was to dig into this, they would have to, take the extra time that their lawyer has already spent to get the background knowledge, to get all of the pieces of information, and then move forward. To me, it makes sense that this Matt already knows it has a much better jumping off spot. Hopefully it would actually end up costing us less money. We have one lawyer who says yes, we have one lawyer who says no. That's the great thing about law, it's an interpretation, but I do think that it is important that we, use our resources wisely, but also explore and stay focused on respecting what the residents are trying to say, do our due diligence. If it ends up being that there isn't anything, then there isn't anything, but we need to make sure that we have done the best that we can for everybody involved in this, especially the residents, especially, I'm not going to go much further than that, but I would appreciate the consideration for allowing them to have additional counsel that is not necessarily town council.
Steve?
Mr. Chairman, years ago, and the clerk would know the date better than I would, but I served as chair of the Recycling and Sustainability Committee, which led to the recycling project in the town. And at that time, we were concerned deeply about BP and the agreement that it had fashioned with the town. I thought it was a totally one-sided agreement, and I have seen nothing really substantively changed between then and now. So I'm deeply concerned about the proposal before the town right now, and I want to do everything in my power to make sure the town residents are protected. And if that means they need an additional independent counsel, even though it's not our town council, to represent the Board of Health, to evaluate certain areas that there seems to be a legal disagreement upon, I want to provide that. And if that costs additional money, so be it. And as my colleague mentioned, we have received on this issue more public comment than on any other issue, including the Prop 2.5 override. By far, it's not even close. And yes, there are mostly, boilerplate letters that we're receiving, but there are other ones as well. But even getting the boilerplates, that's not easy to accomplish. I mean, more than 90 people have spoken up. So I favor this. I don't think that the town is really marching lockstep as a unit on this, that there are certain segments in the town that feel one way about the potential really massive expansion here, and other parts of the town that feel very differently. And make no mistake, if we're concerned about warehouses in the town, this is a warehouse. This is a solid waste warehouse, a garbage warehouse. That's what it is. Lots of trucks, and you get from this warehouse nothing what you would get at a retail or wholesale warehouse. You don't get the taxes. You don't get any businesses being attracted to the town for this. You don't get any residents attracted to the town from this. Nothing at all. You get no payment in lieu of taxes. You get BP providing limited municipal waste recovery. That's pretty much it. So I'm concerned about that. I think that the residents are rightly concerned about that. I want to do everything I can to make sure that if this happens, we've crossed the I's, dotted the T's, there's been a fair fight in the public, and, we'll see how it plays out. Those are my comments.
Mr. Chairman.
Bemis.
All right, I just have a couple of questions or comments or whatever. I asked this of Tom Gregory at this point. It is, of my opinion, that we start with town council, since we pay town council and they are responsible for all town contracts. But can we, if needed, down the road, consider hiring outside if we feel as though, or if town council feels as though they would like some expertise outside of their purview?
Sure. Could that happen in the future? Sure.
All right, so, I mean, I think that we should start with town council. You've not asked for town council. It's not been offered. We can offer town council and start there. We are paying a lot of money for our town council to represent us in all departments, and I think we should start with that, my opinion. As long as we can in the future, come back.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate that for me, this is talking strictly about the contractual. I know, like Mr. Sherrick said, There's a lot of stuff around this, and I agree with a lot of it. Okay, this is not just, hey, let's throw some building in the back here and have at it. I mean, if the Board of Health in its capacity and its powers has a way to change or whatever to make this better, absolutely, no doubt in my mind that is a good thing. Okay, but I don't want to take away our town council's contractual obligation to review contracts. That's all. We're not talking about whether we're approving it or disapproving it, or we don't like it or we like it, or it's too big or it's too small. That's not where we're at yet. If in the law and you guys have that in there somewhere to make this thing better somehow, have at it. That's what I hope happens. But to continue hiring counsel because you don't agree with the fact that our council can provide that service. I just don't agree with that. I agree with the fact that we should do everything we can to make sure that this project is the best thing for this town. And I don't know what's going to happen with that. That's why you guys are there. And that's why you have the council you have to help that. First part, that's why we have our council. I'm sure if there was some part of this somewhere where they say, look, we're not environmental. They may have an environmental attorney. I don't know. But they say this becomes an environmental issue, then we're going to have to hire additional counsel. Good. I'm all for it.
I guess I would just ask, kind of in response to that, and they may not have an answer right now, but is there anything additional to offer on this matter that hasn't already kind of been said? I don't know if town council feels like there's more to explore or to review than you already have in order to give us the answer that we currently have, the stance that town council already provided for this.
I don't think that there's more. If the question is there more to look at, more to analyze, I don't think so. I think it's been fully sort of analyzed by town council
So then that would just kind of be the end of the road for us in terms of reviewing this unless town council were to say that they are okay having someone different look at it. I don't know.
So, Mr. Duplessis, you said that if the Board of Health has the capacity to get out of this effectively or make this work better for the town, go for it, I'll have it. They have a lawyer who is saying that they think there is a path that they could potentially investigate.
How did I hear that? I didn't hear that.
Because they asked a question, that's what Ms. Antonelli said.
Said that
they had
all you said was that he went to the end of his rope.
No, she said that
okay, I'm asking her.
So what I said was we raised it to him, and he said that he feels it has merit and warrants.
What has merit?
The language in the contract, that the contract in general, in a specific section that we're referring to, he feels it has merit for further review, legal analysis, and potential, discussions and negotiations that would require BP to come before the board for a separate review and approval process outside of the site assignment. I mean, if you think of it like this, it's our land, it's the town's land, and for us, so what the stance was from BP and in town council was essentially that this section of the contract is not kind of quote unquote ripe or active at present. It doesn't come into effect until the new building is built and is operational. So it just doesn't seem from a very kind of common sense place that our land, where there's going to be this huge new building built, there's going to be more than double trash coming in, that the town, as the property owners, wouldn't have any say in what that is going to look like, how it is going to operate. All factors associated with this activity that will be happening on town property for the next, 16 plus years. As it is now, and I am glad to hear that you would like for us to be able to do whatever we can to make this better or make it as best as it can be for our community. That, of course, is how we feel as well. But as I've kind of explained, within the minor modification site assignment process, we are going to be very limited in how we can kind of review and rate that proposal. We can't just say, we've had close to 100 people speak out that they're against it, so we're denying it. Because then we open ourselves up for, for essentially being appealed and potentially sued down the road. So again, that process is not going to give us much leeway or leverage to try to make this as best as it can be for our town. The other side, again, because it is not determined or dictated by anything other than the contractual language, will give us more flexibility. I think we're already seeing, that the contract is open for interpretation, and we have different lawyers interpreting it differently. And so, who knows what else we may interpret or find in there to discuss further. I think it's important also to note that as it currently stands, if this were to go forward, if the Board of Health approves it, we are still locked into these two 20-year agreements, lease agreements, and the solid waste agreement. As it stands, nothing is changing in those agreements in terms of what they pay or anything. Yet they are proposing to more than double their facility. And so, from the town perspective, that's not up to me, but I would think that we would want to maybe see if there's a way to renegotiate contracts, look into that further and see what we can do to maybe update what is existing and what was signed in 2021 to present, and, with inflation and all of that, but, especially with the huge increase in size of the operation. We are not going to be able to do that currently with our lawyer on the site assignment process. I don't think that, I haven't heard that that's something that, and maybe we're still too early, but I haven't heard that that's something that's being considered on kind of the town side. But again, it's the Board of Health that signed the solid waste agreement with BP. That is the agreement that says that BP is going to pay us $2,000 a month. The other agreement that was signed by the Board of Health and the Select Board, there is no payment in that one. And so if $2,000 a month is what we are receiving from BP, if there was a desire to maybe make them pay more because of their larger operation, we would need to figure out that contract and see if there is an opportunity to renegotiate. Because again, as it stands, regardless of the size of this operation or if it's the current building or a new building, we are locked into that contract.
Okay, so, Mr. Gregory, all the things she just stated have been asked of our council previously. Everything pretty much that she just said could happen, might happen, they want to double check all that. Has that been brought forth to Brooks and Durensis for opinion on all that contractual language?
Not to, not to my knowledge, no. So that's, potential negotiation.
Well, the Board of Health doesn't go directly to town council. We go through Mr. Gregory. That's something we're at a point that we would have requested that, but I don't know if that's something that's been thought about.
So what I'm getting at here is everything that you've stated, and maybe there's more, in more detail. Has that been officially presented to Mr. Gregory for him to give to our town council? I know the initial contractual language and all that was reviewed, but all these additional things that like you said, maybe there's a chance to renegotiate the contract. Maybe there's a way to change it to get more money, which would be great, right? Mm-hmm. Has that all been asked in regards to this part we're talking about only to Mr. Gregory to talk to Brooks, get an opinion on Brooks and Durensis?
So myself, our board chair, and our council, Matt Connolly, had a meeting with Mr. Gregory and Mr. Huxham back in the fall, I believe it was, and we were trying to discuss and kind of get a good understanding of what the town's stance is on this proposal and kind of talk through some of these pieces. And so we definitely did raise that in that conversation. And at that time, my recollection was that was kind of a new thought or a new idea, not something that had been previously considered or even discussed. But I can't speak for Mr. Gregory in any conversations he maybe has had regarding that.
I haven't received any specific request to renegotiate the solid waste management agreement. I haven't received any of those.
Yeah, and we're not at the point where in that meeting we weren't requesting that, and that was before we kind of uncovered this language in the solid waste agreement. It was more of just a general conversation around, okay, well, if they're going to be expanding, there's going to be this significant change and significant increase. It seems reasonable that things would adjust based on that. And again, we're in this contract now, and so.
All right, so I guess what I'm saying is that, look, I want what's best for the town. Okay, I know there's people that live around us. We have school here. I have friends that live right here. Okay, I agree with all of that, and I agree parts of this probably could have been better. Okay, and I think if there's a way to make that better, I'm all for it. But I think what needs to happen, what I'm understanding is that the Board of Health doesn't agree with VP's attorney. That's fine. They don't agree with ours either, and they want us to hire another one to try to see if there's something else. What I'm saying for me is that it doesn't seem like all that has been exhausted in writing specifically to the town manager to go to the attorney. If in the end Brooks and Durensis says, look, everything in this contract is legal and binding, but if there's some other way, I would want the Board of Health to go to all ends to make things best for the town. But I don't want to usurp the authority of our town council, because if this is the case, you know what? May as well just get rid of them. They're no good. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all. They've been fantastic since we've hired them. Mm-hmm. But to all of a sudden say that the Board of Health doesn't agree with the two legal opinions.
Well, I would also say we don't want to usurp the authority of the Board of Health either. And the Board of Health unanimously feels strongly. You guys are the town, and they are our town council. But boards of health have very specific authority under state regulations on a broad range of things involving public health. And so, we have a 3-member elected board that has been working closely on this topic for more than a year now, and they're of the opinion unanimously that the best path forward is to continue to have our own separate independent council to review matters involving this BP transfer station project. And that's really all I can offer. And, I would hope that the select board would be in support of, what the Board of Health feels in their, professional opinion as it pertains to this matter is best.
I did have one final question. Who drafted the current agreement? Who drafted the current contract?
Which the solid waste management
Yes.
agreement? That was drafted by the former town council.
So town council drafted it, and then town council doesn't think that there's merit behind it.
It was a different town council.
Different town council. This is how many years? 4 or 5 years ago? Different town council.
And I think that's an important piece, is a lot of the key kind of players here, if you will, are different. You have a very different select board. We have a completely different Board of Health. We have a completely different town manager, town council. I think current day standards, we would have done things very differently. The agreement would look very different. There is a lot of gray areas in this agreement, things that are, not clear, open to interpretation. And, it kind of is what it is. That was in the past, several years ago. So we can't change that, but all we can do today is, put our best effort into trying to make the best of the agreement that exists, and trying to, I guess, do better going forward in terms of these type of agreements and negotiations for the town.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make one more attempt at persuading you on this. And that is, I think Mrs. Antonelli has made a convincing argument here that there's at least daylight, or the perception of daylight, between your current council and town council on a key issue involving the contract. If we really want to represent the taxpayers, represent the town residents, and give them the best shot at getting the best deal here, we need to exploit that difference, that dissonance between town council and independent council. So I want to defer on the side of having a greater opportunity to get a better deal for us that way. Now, on the solid waste management agreement generally, this is a giveaway to BP. That's what it was when it was executed. That's what it is today. $2,000 a month is zero. That's nothing. $24,000 a year for them to dump or bring through our town hundreds of thousands of tons of garbage each year. It's pennies on the dollar. So that agreement alone, I mean, we got to reopen the contract on that alone. We've got to somehow. And certainly they don't warrant any sort of even consideration for a expansion the size that they're contemplating for that kind of money. Or probably for any kind of money. But that's another story altogether. The issue right now is the site assignment process. They think they can broaden the areas that can be discussed. I want to give them the chance to get that. The only way we're going to do that is through additional town council. So I make a motion that we authorize the use of either existing town council, the existing special council.
We're voting on whether to hire council or not. That motion's been made and seconded.
Was that your motion? Okay, I thought it was to discuss, because you...
Well, we had seconded so we could discuss it.
Okay,
And that's what we
fine.
brought up, and she discussed it, but then we brought her up.
Well, I intend to vote yes on this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. So it's been, motion been made and seconded to whether we hire outside counsel or not as written. So I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay. So that's 2-2. In effect, a 2-2 vote is a no vote.
Mr. Chair, could you explain that, please?
Excuse me?
Could you explain that?
If it's a tie vote, a 2-2 vote, it's in effect, it's a no to whatever the motion is made. It's state law, Robert's rules. Mr. Huxham, would you like to?
I agree. Motion fails.
I mean, that's,
I had.
yeah, okay.
Clearly, one board member is missing. Is this something we could come back at a next meeting when there's a full board and discuss
be
this
possible.
again?
Yes.
All right, well, thank you very much. And I'll just say before I leave, as I mentioned, we have a Board of Health meeting tomorrow. I encourage everyone to attend. It will also be recorded and posted the following day, but this is going to be a very critical meeting in terms of discussing exactly what this public hearing is going to look like, what the process leading up to the public hearing is going to look like, the timeline, how individuals or groups can become interveners or give public comment. I know there is a lot of questions out there, so again, I just encourage folks to attend that if they can, and again, it will be recorded if you can't attend it live, and as always, folks can reach out to our department with questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Seven C, Select Board to continue discussion on establishing an audit committee. Shark, would you like to?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, let me just report on a meeting that you and I had with Mr. Gregory and Mr. Paul DeRensis from our town council to talk about the issue that came up a couple of meetings ago about the audit committee. And I know you and two of your colleagues had concerns about how the appointments would be made and the extent of authority. So I sent a detailed letter to town council asking specific questions about, this specific duty, this duty. Can we do it under which scenarios? Whether it's a bylaw appointed board whether it's just one appointed by the board itself tonight or at some other point, or whether it's one that involves a charter change. So based on that, I came to the conclusion that the best approach for us right now would be to establish a bylaw-created committee. So this would go to town meeting this spring, and if there's a majority vote, would be adopted and go into effect. And I'll just kind of go over the duties of the board. I'd propose a 5-member audit committee appointed by the Board of Selectmen, recommending the process. So this board would recommend the process for selection of an independent auditor, the frequency of audits, the audit objectives, and the scope of services. It would review proposals submitted by an independent auditing firm, recommend selection of the auditing firm, receive and review financial reports, statements, auditors' reports, management letters, attend the exit interview, and I should have put in there, attend and participate in the exit interview with the auditing firm, review the auditor's recommendations for corrective action, monitor the progress of corrective actions recommended, make recommendations to the select board regarding audit findings, provide recommendations to town boards and officials regarding audit procedures and practices, and the need for additional auditing, and then finally submit a summary of its work for inclusion in the town's annual report. Is that everything I want? No. Is that the best that I think I can get right now? Yes. Is this one that I think can pass the select board? Yes. So I favor this, but I know you would like to have all 5 members here, and so I'm not going to ask for a vote on this tonight, but the anticipation would be that at the next meeting we would vote, I hope, in favor, and we would solicit at that point interest cards from folks who want to serve on this audit committee. There wouldn't be any restrictions on who would serve. My guess, and I think the chair's position would be, we want folks in the town who have experience in financial operations, especially if they have expertise in audits. That'd be terrific. We wouldn't want town employees. And then the other thing we would vote on next meeting would be instructing and directing the town council to draft the bylaw. It would come back before the select board. It would then be presented to town meeting in the spring. So that's it. And I want to thank Mr. Durensis for his really terrific work in analyzing the problem and kind of stating it in a way that even I can understand, and I think all of us will be able to understand. So that's where we stand.
Yep. I agree. I think, you and I talked a lot about this and agreed from day one that, we should have an audit committee, just how it's going to be formed and what their scope of work is. Tonight was, for the discussion to look at this. There's a couple of things I'd like to change, whether we do it or not, when we can vote on it at the next meeting. Mm-hmm. And, like you kind of said, I'll take 90%. I'll take 90% too, just to get this going, get it done, get it to town meeting, and also understand that if it gets approved at town meeting, that it has to go to the legislature. The Attorney General for review and approval. So, it'll get voted on at town meeting, but also Mr. Durensis did note that initially we should try, talked about getting a committee to volunteer to try it out. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And before we establish the final one, it could be everybody that gets on the initial one could stay on. Mm-hmm. That could happen too. Yeah. But I think getting this established, getting it to town meeting, getting it on the books is important. So
I think we're a lot closer than we ever were. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But I want to thank you for the work you put into this to put this together, to sit down with Paul and Tom and discuss. Paul had some input on it from other towns, and his legal input as how he thought, what it should or maybe shouldn't do. And, I think he reviewed this and was good with this too. So that makes me happy too, from originally.
And the town manager supports the idea as well.
Absolutely.
So
Any other-
just one final thing. So if you are interested in serving on an audit committee, not that we have one yet, you probably could still submit a request to the town clerk. Would that be okay? Ah, could they do it right now?
Well, let's,
Yeah.
let's establish, it. let's
All
vote
right,
on it
okay.
first,
All
okay?
right.
Let's not, because you said.
ready.
You said financial and audit background, which I think is great, but I think anybody also has accounting or even
Yeah.
maybe some business management
Sure.
acumen too would be fitting on that committee too, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Lauren?
The first part is lovely. The only part that I would like to consider an adjustment to would be the long-term solution. Amending the charter sounded like it would actually give the audit committee true power as opposed to just being an advisory-only situation. And then it could also allow for the audit committee to be publicly elected. And those are the two changes that I would like to consider when we do vote on it next meeting.
Okay. Next, 7D, Select Board to receive update on finance operations action plan and free cash certification. Mr. Vadia. Evening.
So I believe it's been 400. I believe it's already been 4 weeks already, and I just want to give everyone, the board, an update of kind of where we stand on things with the financial operations plan that we've drafted and kind of continued evolving on and moving forward. So generally, the update at this point, and I'll just go through it. Some of these will go much quicker than the others, but we've talked kind of excessively about some of these, but the credit card and the usage policies and account limits, we've kind of squared most of that away at this point. The only thing I really still have to draft is just a hard policy, just so it's kind of codified. Because we do have one, it just needs to be tailored and drafted to incorporate some of the changes we have already done. So that's really the only part left with that needs to get wrapped up. Payroll processing, we're still running into some snags, I guess. Payroll processing, we're not perfect in getting it off to where we need to be. I mean, everyone's getting paid. It's more the internal side of some issues that are still resolving. People with permissions or staff getting the permissions to get the stuff off. So we're working on that, especially with the transition in staff. Getting them the new passwords and things. It's been a little bit of a hard thing. So we're trying to work that through. Hopefully, get that resolved this week, and then probably next week we've been working with the current vendor KVS to get the file layout set, so we can move to a different banking company to process the payroll. So we're pretty close with that. It's been a little bit of a grind to get that done. We kind of send the file off to them, and then they need certain information. So we want to make sure that that's 100% before we get it finalized, and we should be good to go with that. Benefit enrollment procedures. The town manager had met, I know, with the school and with his staff about a couple weeks ago, just before Christmas as well on this. Time to go over. We're going to start to rearrange some of the benefit structure, who's doing what, so it's more aligned with what other towns do, and it kind of follows a similar process. Because we find that we're kind of all over the place on some things, especially when it comes to new enrollment. So one of the things I know he's worked with and talked to the school and talked to his staff, and we've talked to ours about kind of shifting responsibilities to kind of take the burden away from the treasurer collector's office, and that they're just simply focusing on enrolling individuals once all the paperwork is together. The reason being is, quite frankly, the town manager's office is the hiring authority, and so a lot of times there's things that they have to do on their end first. Going through the sometimes it's a credit check or a background check or whatever else needs to get done. So some of those things are going to shift over to them, and so that'll, I think, make things easier down the stretch for us enrolling people for their benefits. So then from our perspective, then they just have to look at what we call real benefits: health insurance, life insurance, dental, FSA, that kind of stuff. Accounts payable processing, it's we've been fine. We're moving Munis through. We have some things, obviously, we're going to go back and fix. But I think at this point, it's been pretty solid for most people. We have a staff meeting in 2 weeks. I'm going to hopefully get some more feedback of where people stand. But generally speaking, it's running well at this point. We are looking to establish the second phase, which is the payroll process, getting payroll to be processed through Munis. But so we just started rolling that out, and that's going to take some time. So the town manager staff everyone's kind of taking a different piece of this, a piece from my office, a person from the treasurer collectors, the school. Everyone's going to have a little bit of input, so not everyone's going to do the heavy lifting because everyone's going to do it together. So that'll be phase 2, which is currently just getting started. I met with Hudson Light and Power. We met as a group on December 18th with our town council as well as their council. One of the things that they were looking to do is for us to come to have a memorandum of understanding as to policies, procedures, things like processes including the monthly reconciliation, bank transfer procedures, transmission of wires, and putting them in a standard document that we all adhere to. So we met on the 18th. We were going to come up with a few things on our end that I'd like to see in that agreement, just so we have it in writing, and then we're going to probably meet in a week or two just to kind of get back to the process. Let's skip that one for I'll get to that one last. The cash recon year-end submission. So we were supposed to meet with DOR this past Wednesday. I unfortunately had to postpone that meeting due to circumstances beyond my control. But I did meet with Mass Munifins on Friday. We had a great thing. They've gotten a lot of pretty much 99% of the cash recon done for 2024. It's just June that's kind of an outstanding issue that we're going to work on. We spoke extensively of the things that I have to do on my end to get it to balance, which was great. Working with another individual through the company, but we're there. They were going to work on 2025 over the weekend. So she and I have conversations every couple days. So hopefully, I'm hoping, and I said this to the town manager, I'd like to get 2024 done by next week, which would be great. If I can get that done before the end of January, that would be, a big win for us. And then obviously then work on 2025 to get that in. So we've made substantial progress. They are making recommendations of things that we need to do to lighten the load in the office of how we process some of our transactions, because some of the things we're just doing is bogging us down in that office. So she's going to guide us onto how to better do things in a system that makes sense, and we're not it's not as paper intensive, and we can kind of simplify things. One of the things obviously that's gone a long way is the check scanner. When we implemented that back last spring, that's taken a lot of that away. So I feel once we implement a few more procedures, we'll be in a good spot downstairs where things are flowing in a much better manner than they are, or currently in the past, and certainly now. So, but she's got a cash book squared away for us. She's also going to make the recommendations of things that we to do to make the cash book consistent throughout, so everyone's following the same model, and then everyone will get, the majority of the staff will get trained on how to do that cash book, so we don't run into an issue in the future that doesn't know how to be done, or if someone steps away from their role for whatever reason, someone else can just kind of guide into that process, and also we'll have a document that kind of backs up of how to do it. The Schedule A obviously falls in with the balance sheet stuff, so obviously once the cash and the balance sheet's done, we'll submit Schedule A, and so that'll get done within a week after we get the balance sheet squared away. So we'll get Schedule A in for 24, and then once 25 is done, we'll get 25 in. Obviously, the tax recap got done, and then the final item is departmental personnel review. I guess no secret at this point. My assistant finance director is leaving. Her last day is the 30th, so we have a position that we're going to have to fill within my office. So She notified me last week. In addition to that, the consultant that we've been using from Capital Strategic Solutions, he's basically given us a date of March 1st where he's basically going to, step away is not the right word, but reduce his time. And what, he had things set, retirement plans, I guess, set aside for himself and his wife. And I guess, this is taking into that time. So we reached out to Capital Strategic. They offered, I think we can get someone else. We're going to have to do that in the interim. Once we reschedule with DOR, I want to see or gauge their thought process about at least advertising for the treasurer collector position, because I don't want to belabor this much longer. I'm concerned, if we keep doing this, that it's just going to make it difficult to find a suitable candidate. So, that's a discussion we're going to have, and obviously a conversation we're going to have with DOR. And then, as far as the position upstairs, once we'll post it. It's already been posted. There's there are few internal people that may be interested, which is good, but of course that that takes away from another position of something else that probably within our department. So, we're gonna have to take it one day at a time. I'm thinking of a couple of ideas in my head of how we're going to address that, just in case it's too long of a process. And look to maybe hiring a company to help in my office, either a staffing company or a company that helps with accounting, because I can't shoulder that. I can't do it by myself. It's a key position that we need to fill as soon as we can. So that's kind of the biggest takeaway after this. The other stuff is moving in a good direction. It's just the personnel side is taking a little bit of a hit. So, questions?
Tom, you did say, Neil kind of touched on it, but that Capital Strategic Solutions said they have candidates.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Candidates, but they have staff that can come in to fill those voids like they've given us already, right?
Right. They responded and said they'd be able to assist us. So we just have to figure out what's going to be, as Neil said, what's going to be the best match, hours wise. This really can't be a once a week assignment. This needs to be more than that. We've had that with Stephen Price, and I need to get further with Capital Strategic Solutions to gauge their commitment with another employee on their staff. So I just haven't gotten that far yet.
And that the difference between Capital and Mass Muni.
Yeah, so the same, right? Or the position's kind of the same, and what their roles are the same, I guess. But she's too she's too busy, and what her role is a lot different than what we need. She wouldn't be able to offer what we need, because we need a body in the office at least 3 days a week, and she would.
I guess my question is when you say she, Mass Muni has multiple employees, do they not? And then Capital Strategic does also?
Yeah. Okay. But Mass
So
Munifins does, Capital Strategic is more of a semi-temporary role, whereas Mass Munifins is a permanent thing, where a lot of their staff are in, like a lot of towns out in Western Mass, where they act as the treasurer collector.
Okay.
I haven't had the conversation with them yet, and we can't have that conversation. I just don't think she can offer, or her company can offer, what we need in terms of the amount of days in the office, and that's kind of what I need. Because, a lot of the work, for the other companies or the other things, I can't speak for her, but I think some of it's off-site, so she's not having to travel to, Community A, Community B, Community C. But we physically need someone in that office right now, just because of the situation that we're in, that can just be there and handle all the things, that come up day to day within the office.
I think that conversation, because I was part of that when we met with the DOR, the first time with the DOR, was she stated that before you try to hire, you need to bring these people, the consultants, in and get this straightened out before you take the time that's going to take to interview and hire. But, but based upon the assistant leaving and then also Mr. Price reducing. I
Yep.
think, like you said, I think you need to have that conversation with her to
Yeah.
say, we got to do something now.
That's the plan.
We can't keep
Right.
waiting because if we
Correct.
need one more,
Yeah,
or something changes.
Right. And honestly, the process, right, hiring anyone, it's a 3-month process. By the time you advertise, you go out, you get candidates who apply for the job. It's not a 1 or 2 week thing. It can be a month-long process, and that's, assuming you get 5, 6, 7 viable candidates that you sit down and interview, probably have a second interview, do background checks and all that other stuff. So you could be looking at 2.5 months. So as much as I respect what DOR is saying, but also it's a process that takes time. So I don't want it to be.
It made sense 3 months ago.
It did. It made sense 3 months ago. Now
It's
it's
getting to the point where it's,
so.
we need to push beyond.
Yeah. So I'll reschedule with DOR this week. There's only one day I can't do this week, and then so we'll see if I can get them this week, or if not, it'll be next Monday or next Tuesday.
Yeah, and
Monday.
can I,
Yeah.
I would like to, just so, I think it's fair to come from the town of Hudson, but, and you can correct me if I'm wrong with any of this, but I think you serve as a volunteer firefighter in Uxbridge?
I do.
Okay, and the reason we couldn't have the meeting was because they had a death in their police department, and it was Officer Laporta, I believe.
Correct.
An unfortunate accident. I know Hudson Police has reached out to them, but I would like to, through the select board and the town, and through you, to express our sympathies and condolences to that officer and his family.
Yeah. Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
okay, and thank you for your service to them also.
Yep.
So, okay. So, any questions, Lauren?
So I know updating the financial action plan online is a laborious task,
Yeah.
but it has not been updated. since
It's been
November-
updated. I think in
November
2 months. So I'm
1st.
going to try to get it updated this week. It's between that and then I was been sick for what seems like an eternity since Christmas. It's been So I'll get it updated.
Okay.
Yep.
And then I was trying to look back on my notes, but I didn't take the best notes on December 15th. What has been what has progressed since the 12th, 15th? What would you say, 1 or 2 things that are the big
Yeah,
ones?
the biggest thing is that the cash book for 2024 is done and it's balanced to the banks.
It is.
Yes,
I thought you said the June wasn't.
June has some things we still kind of got to clear up, but for the most part, it's balanced. There's some things we have to kind of work out, like entries and stuff that we just have to kind of look at to double check. But generally speaking, it's all done. So that's great. That's an updated thing since December. And the fact that she's now we're into 2025 and working on that stuff. So that's good. And this, the information that's flowing to them continues. So that's good.
And then the 23 audit, that is done, submitted, everything's happy, copacetic?
And I could update. I did reach out to them at the town manager's request about having the auditor come in to the board and present the findings and the management letter and obviously the financials. So I gave him 2 dates, which is, I believe, was it the 26th?
Mm-hmm.
I think is the next meeting, or February 9th. He was going to get back to me.
Is there a report that could be shared with us? Or
Yeah.
me? I don't know
Yeah.
if they want it, but
Yep.
if you
Sure.
could share that with me,
Yep.
that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Along with the management letter and any recommendations.
Yeah,
And the whole board, not just.
sure.
Well, I didn't want to speak for everybody if you wanted to read through it. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Could either of those firms at Mass Munifins or Strategic provide a assistant town finance director?
They could, yeah. I don't know about Mass Munifins as much.
I don't know.
That one I don't know, but
Which
the
is
other one
Winship,
might.
but-
Yeah. Capital Strategic might be able to.
Yeah, okay.
I have one other company too I can look into. Actually, it's the same company that the gentleman you had recommended. He moonlights for them as well. So I'm going to reach out to them to see if he's got someone, or even him would, but if he could, depending on what his availability is.
And you mentioned that that Mass Munifins was making recommendations on lightening the load. Things are bogging us down. Is that because you do too much paperwork and not electronic?
Too much paper, not enough electronic, and just the way we do it. There's, there's a better way to do it. So you're not basically sending every transaction to the bank, and you group transactions of similar things in a similar manner. And so that's basically what, they're looking to us to do, because it just bogs the office down too much. And when we're going to reconcile, it makes it difficult, because now we got to basically unwind all of that stuff. So their recommendation is to basically give us, things that we can do to improve our office flow and make the reconciliation process even easier for us. So if we have to look something up, it's more uniform. And anyone, generally new people coming in, can come in and do it the same way. It's not difficult, because it's uniform throughout. And she makes those recommendations. The company makes those recommendations all the time.
Did you want to offer?
No, actually, Neil kind of got everything in there. It's just mostly getting up to date with technology on 2025. Well, now we're 2026. As had been said, they were very, very paper-driven, very separated duties. They did not work together previously at all. When I stepped into the office, it definitely changed with that. And then as we're moving forward, everyone knows everything. And then when you get specific, that's when we go to who that specific person happens to be. But a lot of it is very bogged down, very, very bogged down. It's just trying to streamline it, trying to educate the departments on how it should look coming forward, definitely getting the processes more with the technology that's out there, bringing that technology in so that we're not writing out hand deposit slips and walking it over to the bank when we don't have to. So it's just a lot of that as to how do you put all of this from the department scan it into the bank, and how do you put it into the cash book? Ways to simplify all of that, things that had not been previously done, while still making sure that you have the proper documentation, what it needs to be to back up. Does this match? Is this going to show up in the bank statement? How is that going to show up on the cash book? So there's just more procedural issues of how they need to do things that can definitely be slimmed down. Additional ways that we can make the cash book work for us. We can either make it more robust and put a lot of detail behind there where you're literally looking at everything and all you're looking at is a ginormous, essentially, pivot table. Or you could actually kind of simplify it. You can go both ways depending on what your treasurer collector enjoys. You could simplify it where you're looking at every bank transaction for the entire day that hits across on a single line. So there are a couple different ways. Kind of its preference, and once you get that preference, you kind of stay with that, and once the cash book's established. So right now we have an incredibly simplified cash book that drives me insane, but it's not my cash book, so that's okay. It works for what the staff had at the time. Once you get that treasure collector in there, and they kind of look at what's there, they'll tweak it a little bit to fit more with what their needs are, with more of how they're familiar with things, with more of what they want the cash book to show them when they have to go to a town meeting or when they have to go to a select board meeting, so that all they're doing is looking at one essential spreadsheet rather than, wait a minute, let me find this, hold on, I don't have that. Essentially, you can have your cash book have everything in there for the entire way. So it's a little bit preference, a little bit knowledge, a little bit education, a little bit getting the rest of the technology into that office so that all of that can kind of come together and go, this is now 2026 for Hudson, which would be great.
Can you, so we talked about, moving forward with positions and, consultants and all that. Mm-hmm. Can you update the board? So, you guys are obviously going to talk about this, right? I mean, about
yes.
who, what, where, when. Can you make sure you update the whole board on, okay, Neil and I discussed this, we feel it might be best to do this, to the X,
Absolutely.
Y, Z.
Yes.
So we don't, at least we don't have to wait for the next meeting to discuss that part of it. As
Yeah,
far as
I follow you. Yeah.
What's happening, because,
Absolutely.
we do
Yes.
have another opening coming, and
Yeah.
it would be, I'd like to have that information so we know what's going on with that. Okay?
Yeah.
All right. You guys good? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm staying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right, next item, budget hearings. Have our budget books.
He was?
Sure.
Aaron. Sure.
Other Aaron.
All right. So are we going up here?
Yep.
Here we go. Okay.
All right. First one
Thank you. No, I got it.
on the agenda here is Select Board, Department 01001220. It's tab 5 in our budget book. Requested amount $17,850. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair?
So moved.
Mr. Chair?
Is that,
Could I indulge the board with a presentation I
You want a
have?
present? Okay,
Is that-
yeah.
And then we can
Yes.
go to the individual department requests?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
All right, I'll back up.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have a presentation here. Just a couple of introductory comments. The budget build cycle in Hudson is very early, as you've heard me say in years past. I start talking with department heads in October. They're starting to think about the ensuing year's requests, and we start those individual department meetings in early November. So I want to first thank the department heads for their work in submitting carefully prepared requests. They are the front line of the service delivery operation here, and their requests are, as I said, carefully worked up and presented to me. So I want to thank them for their efforts. I also want to thank my staff for helping guide us through this process. The other comment I'll make is the presentation, the budget itself has been, a link has been placed under news and events on the town's home web page that links to the select board's page. So it's up in multiple locations online. And then finally, I'll just say this presentation is specific to the operating budget. I'll be filing with the board a capital budget in the first meeting in February. So the general fund operating budget that I have recommended is just over $108 million. It's an increase of $4.35 million, or 4.2% over the current year operating budget. As you'll remember in the discussions we had in May of this year, or April and May, the combined new growth figure for 26 and the override together has helped sustain the override out into fiscal 27. So the override is sustaining the school and municipal departments in fiscal 27. When the board set the tax rate in December, you'll remember there was about 1.8 million in excess levy capacity that was realized. And so when we talk about excess levy capacity, we're talking about a number where the town could raise to a higher amount, but didn't need to because the budget was balanced around a lower tax levy figure. So that levy capacity stays sort of in the background there until across multiple fiscal years until it's used. So to be able to balance the fiscal 27 budget, I needed to use almost all of the excess levy capacity that was realized when we set the tax rate in December, 1.67 million. The budget also uses $200,000 in health insurance stabilization funds. This is the second use of these dollars to help add capacity to the health insurance appropriation. This is the employer's share of the dissolved health insurance trust funds. And I'm using conservative revenue projections. It's a challenging time right now to project state aid because we don't know what the governor's numbers will be. So I'm using a very conservative number. I'm using conservative estimates on the local receipts, and I'll get into a little bit more detail as we get through this presentation. Recommending a 2% increase in the water and stormwater indirect cost reimbursements. The sewer enterprise indirect cost reimbursements are going down since we moved a year ago to Veolia and the contract operations. There's fewer employee benefits involved, so I'm trying to reduce that revenue source gradually over 2 or 3 years so it doesn't have a huge impact on the operating budget in the general fund. So as far as highlights here, level municipal services, I'm recommending, however, 1 additional firefighter and 1 additional patrol officer to be funded through the offset receipts. These offset receipts are the public safety fees that the Hudson tenants at the Highland Commons pay the town every year through an agreement that was negotiated and executed about 15 years ago. A 2.5% increase, a general wage adjustment, I should say, for the non-union employees on the town side. A little over 3.5% increase to the Hudson Public Schools appropriation. That was the amount that was requested by the school committee. I'm able to meet that. In my correspondence with Superintendent Houle at Assabet, I've been advised that there will be 7 fewer students in fiscal 27, so that assessment will actually go down right now. It could change depending on what the governor's numbers will be at the end of January. And so my estimate looking forward, if the revenue projections line up as they are now, we'd have a little over $100,000 in excess levy capacity when we set the tax rate next December, which is quite a departure from where we were last month. You can see that number below. As far as challenges here, as I mentioned earlier, the budget build cycle is very early in Hudson. It's driven by the charter. It's a challenge to predict the state aid numbers. Some of the lines are easy to trend forward because there's not much variability from year to year. Other lines where there is variability, trending forward those numbers can be really challenging. I had conversations, some of the school numbers, especially school revenue and assessment figures on the cherry sheet can be tricky to trend. I've had conversations with the superintendent and Dan Gale to try to collectively figure out what's our best number on some of these, such as the charter's tuition reimbursement number, the charter assessment on the other side. I think at the top of the list here, we have a 20% increase planned for health insurance premiums, the active plans, a 15% increase on the Medicare plans as of January 1st. This will be the second year of a very, very large increase in health insurance, which in the MMA, I'll say, has been sounding the alarm on this trend, which they see continuing out for several fiscal years. These are increases that we haven't seen in the municipal world in decades. 10% increase projected workers' comp, 15% on all of the other lines, 29% increase in natural gas supply costs. And I added the bullet point here, challenging municipal labor market in Massachusetts. This affects Hudson. It affects many other municipalities where the wave of retirements continues, especially in the finance positions, in the labor pool that is there to fill these positions is shrinking. There are fewer younger people getting into this work. The DOR has been trying to get out in front of this over the years by getting funding interns. We actually had an intern 2 summers ago. So it's a challenge for the budget. It's a challenge for the operation. And then I'll say just fiscal sustainability concerns for 28. So in fiscal 28, we're not going to have that large amount of excess levy capacity. We're not going to have a very large new growth number, and we'll need to rely on the typical revenue figures here in Hudson. And my concern is that those typical revenue figures cannot support an operation that exists right now. I don't mean to be too dour or too negative, but and especially if the increase in health insurance continues again in another year. But it's a real concern I have for 28 and beyond. Okay, so here's a spreadsheet showing revenue for the general fund compared for fiscal 27, the projection, compared to what the figures on the recap that was filed in December. You can see the levy is the largest revenue source for the town, increase in 4.1 million. Then you see state aid, which is the second largest amount. I have it broken out, general government, education. Local receipts, and I'll talk a little bit more about these in a couple of slides. I'm showing a small increase. Indirect cost reimbursements from the enterprise funds, water, sewer, stormwater. You can see the net decline here because sewer enterprise reimbursements are going down. Light and power surplus, and health insurance stabilization are the two available funds as well. That brings you to 108,124,205. Again, increase of 4.3 million, 4.2% over the budget that was incorporated in the recap. Here's just an overview of the levy calculation. I think this is kind of important. We talked about this, or the Board of Assessors talked about this during the recap discussion, setting of the tax rate. I'll just briefly review this again as it relates to 27. And so we start in 26. You can see at the top the prior year levy limit, 63 million. The Department of Revenue allows communities to adjust property parcel assessments whenever there's omissions or where property assessments have been needed to be revised due to clerical, data processing, or other good faith effort. And we were able to capture 182,105 in this omitted and revised growth that was captured as a part of 25 and it's added into the levy in 26. You can see that's the second row there. Then you add the 2.5%. Then you see the 2.7 million new growth for 26, the override below that, and that brings you to the current year levy limit. And then on top of that, you have the debt exclusion tax yield, which is the additional amount the town can raise in taxes to pay the debt service for building projects that were voted via debt exclusions. The high school, JFK Middle School, the new DPW building. And that brings you to the total maximum allowable levy, and then the 75 million, and then the tax raised on the recap, 73,793,000, that yields a rather significant amount of excess tax levy capacity. So when you move from the 26 column to 27, you start with the previous year's levy limit, 71,502,000, add the 2%, add the estimated new growth. You can see that's much less than the 2.7 million. I've used 650,000 rather as the estimated number when I filed budgets here in the last several years. It needs to be conservative. We need to hit that number. And there's a slide I'll show you in a moment that shows the trend over quite a few years. And then that brings you to the current year levy limit. The debt exclusion tax yield sits on top of that. Maximum allowable levy, 78 million. And of that maximum allowable levy, I'm projecting to use almost all of that, 77,920,000, which leaves just over 100,000 in excess levy. This is a chart showing the new growth applied to the levy limit since fiscal 2017. I mean, you clearly can see that 26 is a number that dwarfs by an order of magnitude new growth figures that the town has received going back to 2017. So 650,000 is the appropriate estimate. I can't rely on one outlier year to build an estimate around when I know that the real number, the real trend number, is much closer to 700,000, let's say, or 750,000 over those years. Okay, so issues or comments with state aid. I'm projecting an actual decrease in net state aid and so when I talk about net state aid, I'm talking about the combination of the revenue component on the cherry sheet combined with the assessment and charges on the other side of the ledger. You have to talk about both together to calculate the real impact of state aid. And my projection is that the net state aid for 27 will actually be less than the net state aid received in 26. Chapter 70 increase, I'm projecting a modest increase. We're what's called a minimum aid community, which means generally the foundation budget doesn't adjust, but what does adjust is the legislature's per pupil award, let's say. Some years it's been $30 per pupil, some years it's been higher. So I'm calculating a per pupil adjustment in the state budget for Chapter 70s, but no increase in the foundation budget. The unrestricted general government aid, UGA as it's called, I'm expecting to increase at only 2%, which is actually a little bit higher than what we received in 26. We just received 1.1% increase in 26. And then the charter school funding formula has been a perennial problem for the town of Hudson for quite a few years now. The net cost to the town, just to educate students at the charter schools, Hudson students, is $4.3 million. Again, that combines both the tuition reimbursement along with the assessment. This is not my slide, so I can't take credit for it. This is the MMA slide, and it's a slide I showed the Select Board and Finance Committee back when there was discussion around the override, and this shows you, it shows two trend lines. The green trend line is the trend line showing state revenue collection since fiscal 2008, and below that in orange is the trend line in the unrestricted general government aid to cities and towns, which you can clearly see has not kept pace with the revenue collected by the Commonwealth. Now, I've been trying my best to shine a light on the efforts that the MMA has been taking to talk about these issues facing cities and towns, and this is one of them. And a proposal that recently came out, I believe it was in December, from the MMA, one of their proposals to address some of these very difficult financial issues facing cities and towns is to request that the legislature increase the UGA line by 26.5%, which would bring in, or would yield $350 million, $351 million. The MMA slogan, let's say, is $351 million for 351 cities and towns. That would, for Hudson, that would mean an additional approximate $600,000 if the unrestricted general government aid increased next year, not by 2% that I have, but by 26.5%, would be an additional $600,000 approximately. The chances of that happening, unlikely. That's me. I could be wrong.
Say a little bit more than unlikely.
Okay, local receipts. So local receipts, the largest of these is motor vehicle excise tax. Others include the hotel and meals excise, payments in lieu of taxes from the Housing Authority, penalties and interest and taxes, department fees, revenue from permits that are issued. The local receipts are the most elastic of the town's revenue sources because they generally are linked to the health of the economy. A good example, for 4 or 5 years, the motor vehicle excise tax revenue was pretty flat from about 2018 to 2023. And what does that tell me? That tells me that people are choosing to buy new cars. They're holding onto their cars longer because we're watching, and we all see this, the price of used and new vehicles continues to do this. But the good news here, and for the first time in about 5 years, beginning in fiscal 24, we're starting to see some increase, a meaningful increase in motor vehicle excise tax. You can see there was a 13% increase in 24 in the actuals, and in 25 there was a 5.2% increase. So I'm hopeful that that's the beginning of a continuing trend line, and I'm using that as the basis primarily to recommend $8.6 million for fiscal 27. And I'm showing you the historical figures here. Projecting local receipts can be challenging because we're projecting something that will occur many months ahead, and we don't have actuals up to date as of today. I have to rely on actuals from 25. I don't know necessarily where 26 will land, I should say, is a better way to say it. So it's a conservative estimate. It's an estimate I'm confident that I believe the town can collect. Again, the water, sewer, stormwater reimbursements, indirect cost reimbursements, and then the available funds rounds out the revenue side. On the expense side, I know there's a lot of numbers here. I won't go through everything, but you can see the education component at the top, the increase to the Hudson Public Schools assessment at 3.53%. You see the reduction in the Assabet assessment. And then you see the departments, the general government departments, municipal requests, health and life insurance increase. Medicare is the employer's share of the federal Medicare tax. General insurance, pension, you see debt service, and then the charges below, tax title expenses, the cherry sheet offsets. So just briefly, cherry sheet offsets, what are those? The library and school choice items on the cherry sheet, those revenue sources go directly to the departments for expenditure, so they have to appear both in the revenue side and the expense side. And then you see cherry sheet assessments and the overlay reserve, which is raised by the assessors to fund abatements and exemption, and that brings you to the total figure, 108,124. That's where we are. Happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Questions at this point? No? Okay. All right. Back to you. Item number 1, Select Board, tab 5, amount requested $17,850. Is there a motion?
Motion, so moved.
Second.
Second. Questions and comments? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Next one, Town Manager, tab 6. Requested amount $415,820. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Questions or comments?
I have a couple of small questions.
Hey, Lauren?
Regarding down in the operating expenses with the conference travel training and the dues membership increases, what are those due to?
The conference travel training line is primarily the MMA annual meeting. That's the majority of that. That expense has gone up recently in recent years. I've been having to fund deficits the last couple of years because I have kept that level funded. So I'm trying to bring it up to actual projected expense. And the dues membership is also MMA, MMHR that Fernanda participates in as well. Those dues have gone up slightly.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Legal Services, tab 6 also, $250,000.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? That passes 4-0.
I guess I did have a question on that.
Okay, go ahead.
That 250,000, that is just the budgeted amount for the year? Is that whether they do 10 hours or 10,000 hours?
This is the projected appropriation. It's the appropriation we've used every year I've been here, and I think I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was the number that was used 2 or 3 years before I arrived here. So that's the total. That's the appropriation that's anticipated to cover town council expenses, labor council expenses for the year.
Everything.
For the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, Town Buildings, tab 6 also, $83,941.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments?
I do.
Lauren?
Regarding the natural gas and the electricity, have you taken into account the new HVAC, updates being done in that? Because hopefully you'd use less natural gas.
That's a good question. I didn't because I'd be blindly guessing a little bit at this point. So, but I do expect that there'll be some savings that will accrue because of the energy efficiencies. So,
Thank you.
Great. All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Personnel expense, tab 6 also,
So moved.
$16,760.
Second.
So moved. Second. Questions or comments?
If you would indulge me, what is this?
Okay, so the first line here, the medical line, it covers pre-employment physicals. It covers psychological exams for new police officers, and anything related to hiring across the departments.
Okay.
The education amount here, $4,760. $2,400 of that is a contractual benefit for the firefighters. It's actually written into their contract. It's been one of their benefits, contractual benefits, for many years. The balance is the amount available for all of the other employees for tuition reimbursements.
Okay.
It's not much.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't go very far. It's something I'd like to try to, in the years to come, try to increase.
If you get that 22%.
That's right. And then the hiring and training expenses. This is for advertising in the MMA. Any advertising expense for new positions. From time to time, we'll need to hire a recruiter. You can see in 24 we did that. That's where those expenses would be charged. Hiring expenses.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. All those in favor? Okay, it passes 4-0. Excuse me. Next is debt service, tab 26. Go there. $4,990,879.
So moved.
Okay. Questions or comments?
It just takes me a while to get there. I have to scroll.
Okay.
Never mind. It's fine. You're good.
You good?
Yeah, I don't know how to find it. It's fine.
You sure?
Yep.
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Okay. Did you raise your hand, Lauren? I'm
I
sorry.
don't know. Just 2 seconds.
We can wait. I mean, if you want to, I prefer to wait.
I don't have tabs is the problem, so I have to just search through. So I found it.
Do you want to skip over this and come back, or you?
Good. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So, are you voting yes?
Yes,
No?
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize.
No, that's fine. All right. 4-0. Retirements and pensions, tab 27.
This is the assessment that we received from the Middlesex County Retirement System. There are 104, 105 retirement systems in Massachusetts. We're with Middlesex County, and it's a number that we don't negotiate with them. We just receive the number and pay it on July 1st. So,
All right. $8,449,430.
So moved.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, that passes 4-0.
That feels like the definition of a rubber stamp right there.
I don't think we have any choice.
Yep.
Group health insurance, tab 28. $8,816,613.
So moved.
Questions or comments? Okay.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Yeah. Ouch.
it's going to be more ouch too.
Yeah.
I will add, if I could, that one of my strategies is to convene the Insurance Advisory Committee, in March or April, and start the process of looking to see what options are out there. There's the Commonwealth's GIC that state employees participate in, and many municipalities have migrated to. There are other joint purchase groups. So I want to get this group together and start with our consultant and start looking at options, what's out there, start that process sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. All those in favor? Okay. Passes 4-0. General insurance, tab 28 also. $1,327,653.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Town clerk. Tab 10. $223,334. Joan, do you want to, almost forgot. Sorry, motion, do we have motion? You didn't, second? Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Want to make sure.
When in doubt, yes.
Thanks. Okay, Joan.
Well, good evening. So, in the town clerk's office, basically it's just salaries, for, let me just grab the paper. For the town clerk, the assistant town clerk, and the senior clerk. It also includes, our budget for the office supplies. That one. And sick leave buyback is just for the town clerk presently. And the board of registrars, that we pay 3 registrars and myself. That's $875. And then bookbinding, office supplies, equipment repair, printing, which includes the census. Well, I should say the office supplies is the census. That's why it's 12,622. And we go to conference, both the town clerk and the assistant town clerk, and membership.
Good?
Can I?
Yeah.
Is there any move towards becoming a little bit more electronic and less paper dependent?
So I've heard this discussion, and we are pretty much being more electronic with the OpenGov program that's online. That has increased our dog licensing, requests for birth, death, marriages. Marriage intentions still have to be in person. We do notary at the office. We are very much more electronic thanks to Iran and Jerry in the IT department. I would say Jeff Malakowski, the assistant town clerk, has mastered OpenGov. If he has issues, he talks to Jerry in IT, and they solve the problem. We have almost 1,100 dogs registered presently. We registered 2,600 dogs for the year, so we're in January, we're halfway through with OpenGov. People can pay online 24 hours a day. And so it's really simple for the residents. They can upload their rabies certificates, so it's like we can have that information available to them. So I would say that our office is very electronic compared to 10 years ago, which I have to explain to the assistant town clerk, Jeff Malakowski, who's recent in the office since 21. Back years ago, they used to handwrite dog license and fishing licenses. All of that is online. So we run efficiently. We can do birth records and death records really quickly, and people are getting access to them. So if they live far away, they order it online. We can put it in the mail that day, which cuts down on postage, which is pretty expensive these days at 74 cents. That's like requesting a dog license. Someone said, we want to pay that fee that OpenGov charges. And so if you order something like a dog license, it's like, I want to say it's $1.49. Well, by the time you get an envelope to mail us the check costs you money, the envelope costs you money, and the stamp. So it's actually cheaper to just order it online, play it with a card. If you pay with a check, it's 50 cents.
You just come in and see your smiling faces and do it there.
Yeah, so we do miss people. and I'm very social, but they still have to come in for certain things like notaries. And this is going to be election year, so we'll see lots of people. And we'll talk about election in the next item.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? Okay. Keep up the good work, Joan. Always very efficient when it comes to
She is.
pretty much everything. Elections and town meeting, tab 10, $73,291. Motion?
Motion.
Second. Okay, Joan?
So there are, every year the election number changes, even depending on the fiscal year. And in fiscal year 27, there will be 3 elections. State primary, September 26th, state election, November 26th, and then the town election, May of 27. So what that means that there's a lot of early voting that's going to occur. And I will come back later in the year to ask for in-person early voting for the May election to coincide with the state primary and the state election, just so that people don't get confused. But in the post office, not to put anybody down, we mail ballots in, it's a very tight time period when you mail ballots. By the time the deadline closes, and then we have to keep them in the office, and then people can pull papers just 33 days before the election. We have to get the ballots printed, and then we mail them as soon as they come in. So it's pretty much a tight timeline. So we're depending on the post office to take that, bring them out to the voters. If the post office fails, and I don't have in-person early voting, then they can only go to the polls. They can't come in person. Otherwise, I'd have to mail a ballot. And we found last year that was an issue. So going forward, we're going to ask for your approval after I have a meeting with the Board of Registrars, if 50% of them agree to have in-person early voting. So early voting is a big thing for all elections. People like it. It's not going away. But there's a cost to that. And that's manual labor, not electronic.
Yeah.
So we do have electronic for people overseas. They can go online to a portal and vote. That's a lot easier. And anyone that's handicapped that falls in the category can also go into that portal. The state has that online when we're having our elections. It's very concise. There's a procedure. It's very easy. Other than the election town meeting, we had a expense last year because we were predicting 2 days and we had to rent equipment. On a normal town meeting, which has been changed to 6:30, just to push that out there, it's not as expensive. So we don't always know what's on the warrant and how many people will come. So that's my budget for this year, predicting a normal turnout.
Okay.
Just one question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
How many people vote from overseas, do you know?
Depends on the election and depends on who's on the ballot. But I think in 24, November, we'll talk November of 24, I think there was like 49 people.
Just one idea. Thank you.
That's people that have went to school overseas, decided to stay over there. And it's a lot easier voting in the portal. When they didn't have the portal, we used to email, and they used to fax it back, or they scan it and bring it back. Sometimes they didn't have scanners. The ballot wouldn't be perfect, so we'd have to communicate to them again to get them to scan again. The time was different, so sometimes it was more difficult. But now that it goes in the portal, it comes out perfect.
Okay. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Okay, passes 4-0.
So two comments I just wanted to say. The office runs smoothly because the people that work in the office, my election workers that come in, are great people. Whenever I need help, people come. Like if I put out, a request for someone to come in, they're right there. And so I can't, say enough about
They don't come in, you're going to go get them, aren't you?
Well, there's some truth about that. And then we talked about electronics. I'm only as good as the IT department. They listen to us about some of the things that we have issues with, and they fix it right away. And there is an expense to that. It's not my budget, just saying. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. All right, moderator, tab 11. $110. Michelle, you want to come down and then do your
Justify your $110.
$110 worth?
So dues.
No, you're not getting 115.
No, dues to go for the year are $160, and to go to the not $160, $60, and to go to the yearly meeting was 50, just under 50 something. So I rounded up to 110.
You rounded up.
Sure?
You can go online and
What
look.
about stopping at McDonald's or anything like that? You don't want anything more?
I didn't know that we could do
I
that,
won't be able to
so.
afford McDonald's. Not on
We give her-
$110.
If we give her 210, she will. All right, so,
It's an impetus to get more people to come to town meeting.
A French fry for everybody. One.
all right.
I think we had a motion. and
Yeah,
a
second it, yep. Any other
yeah.
questions, comments? Thank you. All
Enjoy.
right, all those in favor? All right,
Enjoy
Michelle,
tormenting
thank you.
Spend it all in one place.
I'll
Thanks
try,
for-
there's 2 places. That's
Thanks for a great job. Finance Committee, tab 12, $100,600.
So moved.
Second.
Anybody from Finance Committee? No, we good?
No FinCom? They were?
Okay.
I'll just add, Mr. Chairman, just for, you know, because you see a large increase from 25 to 6, just as a reminder that the $100,000 increase here is the reserve fund, which is controlled exclusively by the Finance Committee for unforeseen extraordinary expenditures.
Right.
That had always existed as a separate warrant article. For the purposes of efficiency, we just brought it into the budget, that's all. So it's not an increase in the budget, it's just moved from a warrant article into the operating budget.
Okay.
Makes sense.
That happened for the first time last year, this year for 26.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor? Passes 4-0. Board of Assessors, tab 13, $187,702. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Brian, welcome.
Good evening, everybody. Just a couple of quick comments. FY '27 will be an interim year. We just went through our certification year in FY '26. The board has a lot of oversight from the Division of Local Services. With that certification, there was, some recommendations. There was some, kind of ongoing discussion on kind of how the office should be run. Kind of the timetable of everything that we do. Historically, the office staff is actually under the finance department. So Katie Evangelisti and Nelia Cardoza are actually not in the assessors budget. It's actually in the finance budget, which is okay, but it's historically been there. The assessor's budget typically runs the assessor member salary and appraisal services, which is the largest two groups of that. I will say that the Board of Assessors, we have Christine Griffin, who is a lawyer, myself, who has an accounting background, and then Joanne McIntyre, who also has served in the board for over 20 years. So we have a pretty well experienced board, which and obviously we have a new person, Katie Evangelisti, who has done a phenomenal job in that. So just a couple of line items here. The assessor member salary, I know that Mr. Gregory had mentioned a 2.5% increase in the non-union. Typically, we had put in whatever that was. We're actually only putting in a 1% increase for this year on top of a level funded increase for last year. Conference and travel, it went up $1,000. Katie's kind of going through her certification to be an assessor. So that conference and travel, that's along with some of the appraisal services, is really going to support that, along with the finance department. So we kind of work hand in hand to make sure that those certifications are done in a timely manner, and that she can get the certification that principal assessors typically would have in that role. All the other ones are pretty straightforward. The appraisal services, this is an increase from last year. Tom and I and Katie kind of discussed that. We actually originally submitted, a higher number, and just trying to make sure that we continue the momentum that we had during the certification year, and make sure that all of the properties are, visited in a timely manner, and that we continue to keep up with the requirements of the DLS. Some of those appraisal services are for external contractors that we utilize. In addition to that, I know there's been a lot of discussions with audits. In that is actually a desk audit, which is something that typically departments would do to make sure that they're being run efficiently. Whether it be the elimination of paper or making things a lot more streamlined, that cost would typically comes in around $10,000 or $15,000. So that's in the appraisal services budget as well. We've been discussing this for probably 6 months to a year, and decided to postpone that into the current to the next fiscal year, only because we were kind of going through the certification process. So we wanted to make sure that, and Katie was kind of new on board. So now that we've kind of got through that cycle, we want to be able to do that in FY27. Excuse my little hoarseness. I was yelling at the game last night a little bit, so so I was a little tired today, but survived the night.
You want to tell us what you were yelling?
What's that?
You want to tell us what you were yelling?
I do not. Well, it varied.
You're like, nice catch.
Certainly the superlatives were wide-ranging.
All right. Any questions for Brian?
Just a reminder, how much do the board members get paid?
It's approximately $10,000 each. Yeah. The chair typically gets $600 more. That's the way it's always been since in the 28 years that I've been on the board, and up for election in 2000.
And you said you're only asking a 1% increase?
1% increase over the previous year.
2.5. Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Lauren?
So with the 60,000 that is not being recommended, what are you not getting?
Well, as you can recall, at town meeting, we went for a special amount with regards to making sure that we satisfied all of the certification requirements for this fiscal year, which I'm happy to report that we did. And so what I originally had proposed to Tom is to make sure, put that money in the budget, so we're not actually going for town meeting. But we think between the utilization of the consultants, the utilization of the office staff, and the Board of Assessors, that we should be able to kind of withstand that. So typically in any of those line items, if it's not used, then it either gets encumbered for use for the following year, or it gets turned back. Right. So it was just again, when it was originally presented, rather than go through a two-step process, you always have it in one step. But we had a great meeting today. Talked about it and agreed on a path forward, and to help utilize and to balance the budget.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All those in favor? Passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Thanks, Katie. Municipal Light Board, tab 14, $3,900.
So moved. Sorry.
Second. Okay. Anybody? No. Tom, good. You good? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Here you go, Tom
All right.
Green.
All those in favor? Okay, that passes 4-0. Fort Meadow Commission, tab 15, $8,200.
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Is anybody here from Fort Meadow? No. Okay. Okay, all those in favor? Okay, passes 4-0. Lake Boone Commission, tab 15, $3,200.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? Anybody from Lake Boone? No. Okay, all those in favor? Passes 4-0. Historic District Commission, tab 16, $784.
So moved.
Second.
Questions or comments? All those in
Just
favor?
a general question.
Question?
Yeah, just related to this and the previous one. When they just say expenses, is that something that can be expanded upon in future
Oh, just, I'm sorry, for
For both the Historic District and the Lake Boone Commission, it just says expenses.
oh, I see, okay, well.
Could that in the future be expanded upon? It doesn't, not right now, but just,
Sure, yeah,
okay, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, passes 4-0. All right, that's the end of budget for tonight. All right, next, you guys, I'll give you guys a minute here. All right, next, citizens' issues. Alicia Smith, 24 Xena Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for having me.
Good evening.
And I know this has gone long. I will try to keep my comments brief so that we can adjourn after a few more comments. And I really appreciate the insight into the 2026, 2027 budget. Oh, well, Alicia Smith, 24 Xena Road. I enjoyed the 2026, 27 budget walkthrough. Thank you for that insight. And it's hard with all the conversations we have going on in town because it makes me wonder if we had a transfer station that was paying us fair market value, how different would those numbers be? Like really, $6 a ton is what fair market value is, right? And that's not even considering the expansion. Like that's $650,000 coming in every year, or would have been, but we don't have that. So that's just food for thought. But I'm here in reference to the independent counsel request by the Board of Health, which I'm hoping that we can continue to have a conversation on in the weeks to come. And I'm here representing the citizens, the almost 100 citizens that wrote in with their request to have this independent counsel funded. I mean, we are pleading with you to reconsider your vote. The Board of Health is critical to determining public safety for everyone. And they are a separate statutory authority, and they need to be able to have the information on all sides of the question so that they can make the best information with best decision with the information they have. And if they don't have all the information, they can't make the best decision for the people. And so, for all the reasons that Mr. Antonelli had stated, that we need independent counsel. It's a large situation. It's complex. We have a business that's been in place for 20 years. We want to keep businesses in place. We want them to also fit with our community. And it's another 20 years that we're deciding. So, like, we need to be very sure in our decisions around the next 20 years of our lives. And so, I am pleading with you to reconsider the vote on funding independent counsel. We have shown historically, through our last contract, the 2021 contract, that we left some things out, including payment to the town for any kind of trash disposal. So we've proven that we are not that great with contracts, and we need the independent review. We need the support. The Board of Health, they're just citizens. They're just people that were elected because they said that they would uphold the public health and the public safety of our people. And now they're being asked to go through an immense amount of information. They're not trained for this. They're just good people, and they're asking for our help. And we need to honor that they don't have all the answers to make the right decision. So please consider it. One point of clarification is that I know we had talked about town councils on both sides, or the town council versus the lawyer, and how, we really want to make sure that we go through town council and really vet that solution fully. At the Board of Health meeting on 12/23 in the agenda, there's a whole series of conversation between Mr. Gregory and Mr. Gallen, the chair of the Board of Health. In one of those emails, Mr. Gregory talks about how, in reference to this question, he has spoken to town council, and this is the answer. And so clearly, there's still a he said, she said. One lawyer says yes, one lawyer says no. There's still a need for independent counsel. second item I have is that I am getting really uncomfortable with the mass exodus of employees we have at the town level. There are 10 that I know of, and I'm not privy to all the information going around town. I know there's a lot of different variables, but it's hard to comprehend that we've lost 10 people in a matter of months that are helping to run our town. And what exactly are we doing to prevent this, to fix the issue, to look at the performance reviews and actually manage people out that are not doing a good job for us? Where are we with the performance reviews in that piece? That is a question I would like to know the answer of. But the reason why I'm up here speaking is that I'm particularly concerned with the leadership vacancies, specifically the DPW director. I mean, as you know, like, it's a mission critical role, and it affects daily operations, infrastructure, financial stewardship, residents' quality of life. And I know that the town charter requires that the select board approve the candidate. But considering how important this role is, I am respectfully requesting that there is some form of public input, similar to how the school committee already does it. They have a great system. They already include the public to a certain degree. The public does not make any decisions. They just have input. The decisions go up the chain of command to the people like yourselves that make the final call. And if not the public, at a minimum, the select board should have privy to the people coming through and being interviewed and those final packets before they get to the final decision. Because at that point, the ship's already sailed. And if we need to say no, then we're wasting time, we're wasting money, we're wasting process, and it just doesn't make sense. We should be operating with an arms wide open, do this together, not a you do this, you do that. It's like one thing over the wall, then one thing over the wall, and nobody's working together to run this town. And the answers are there. The answers are clear that we need to work together and communicate in order to get the ship back on track. We're off track, and it is scary. That's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, next item, board topics. Diane.
Yes, I just have one item. I wanted to thank Christina Johnson, who is the Director of Planning and Development, because she just recently released the full traffic study, the independent traffic study, which relates to the 75 Reed Road development. And so for you folks that are interested in the old Intel property and the development and National's proposal, understand that that traffic study is now up online, and you can get that. And also that the meeting, the public hearing, is on January 21st. It will be a Zoom meeting. Unfortunately, that decision is made by the planning board. It is not made by the Director of Planning and Development. And 2 of the members of the five-member board will be out of state. But not only that, there's no location where we can have both HUD-TV and have a Zoom accommodate a public meeting. So unfortunately, it has to be all Zoom. That information will be coming out soon. So I encourage all of you to please participate in that public hearing that is January 21st, which is involved in the development of the old Intel property. And the specific topic for that night is traffic, and I believe it's also air quality. So I think that people should be aware of that.
Okay. Steve?
I'm all set.
Lauren?
What's that?
Okay. Don't have anything. Correspondence to be noted by the clerk.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we have 4 pieces of correspondence, 2 from Alicia Smith, who just spoke, one on a request for approval of independent counsel for the Board of Health, and another couple of emails regarding public input on the, her suggestion of public input for the Director of Public Works hire. Also, we have notice from the, on the public hearing for the so-called minor modification to site assignment. I know that's the legal term, but it is a major change, most people would think, and that's going to be on Tuesday, March 10th, 6 p.m. at Hudson High School on Brigham Street. And then the final email is from Tom Green, also suggesting that there be some sort of public input in the DPW director search. That is all.
Is there a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. In favor? Okay, passes 4-0. There's no need for executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.